Alright guys, Supreme Kami over here, and I am continuing to recommend some parts that you guys can be focusing on in terms of upgrading it, putting it into your growth hanger for upgrades. So the last time I did it, it was pretty much everything you need to know about some of the better, cooldown reduction type parts. So this time around, I am explicitly going to be focusing on some of the power boosting portrait. So not only are we just going to talk about the power boosting portrait, we are exclusively going to be focusing on a little bit more of those damage portrait, just because I feel like I certainly have recommended all the available 40% trade in many videos already. So I'm pretty sure you guys are fully aware of like where they are anyway. So so that's why this time around I do want to focus a little bit more on the new portrait, not really the new portrait but the updated version of it. So let's actually get started with the head parts. Alright, so jumping into our very first part, we have the big scale tech attribute Strike Freedom Gundam. So currently this is the only head part we have in this game that has the damage plus 40%. So for those who are still confused about this portrait, so essentially you are doing 40 more damage, 40% more damage to your enemy, or this one specifically shooting based. So if anyone is still confused, I do have a separate video talking about equipping this portrait. They actually does allow you to do more damage. So for anyone out there still confused, do definitely check that out. So yeah, essentially these are like kind of like quote unquote like the new portrait that you should be having onto the build, because in terms of the damage output, if you pair it up with some of your regular power boosting, like regular shooting power boost by I don't know 40%, and then EX skill power boost by 40%, so those two basically they're calculated together. So once you add these to these specific portrait to the equation, you're essentially going to be getting a higher damage output. So it's all good, just for anyone out there that is still confusing about this portrait, this is actually a must run. I feel like in most case scenario, because they have been pushing this portrait for quite a while. It's just back then they had it cut minus the percentage, while in terms of the updated version they changed it to damage plus the actual percentage. So if you guys do ever run into this portrait, definitely a must have. So this one is specifically going to be for your shooting build. So I would definitely say this is a very top tier part to be looking at. So definitely no complaints on this one whatsoever. Alright, so moving over to some of the torso section here. So first thing first, we have the double quanta folk saber torso here. So this one back then I pretty much didn't really ignore it, but it was the fact that I thought it was just like a regular power boosting. Since they did actually change up the wording, and then in terms of how it is calculated now, this now becomes a very potent portrait to be running, or just specifically a torso for your melee build. So this one overall is very good. You also do have a squad melee power boost by 35%, so that is good. Kind of keep that in mind, this one is explicitly going to be for your melee build, so there is not going to be anywhere within this one that says not going to be too generous in terms of talking about universal wise up here. I think the next part that I'm going to be talking about does a little bit better job in terms of quote unquote universal typing, but this one overall for your melee build, definitely a top tier recommendation for sure. So warfare wise, close combat and pro tag right there, so definitely very good overall stat as well. And then this one does have some good link attribute and able to access whatever attribute DP attribute has. So basically just a very good part overall. Up next, we do have something just a little bit more recent. So we have the full armored unicorn Gundam here. So when I said universal, this is what I mean by universal. This one, enemy all damage plus 40%, and then all power boost by 40%. So this one is going to be your traditional quote unquote double 40% trade, but in terms of this one caveat, you do have the odd damage plus 40%. So this one is just going to be able to magnitude what kind of damage output you are looking at. So definitely a very top tier recommendation. And this one honestly, it's just going to be another continued trend of one part being able to satisfy both a melee build and a shooting build. So why not? The stat on this one is seemingly very well balanced in a way, so definitely really good. If you guys are able to get this one up to a 7-star, and then if you do have the other two attributes going on, I believe it's the P attribute and then the tech attribute, they both do have some more tech that you can potentially access to. Since this one is, like I said again, does do a very good job into a dual type build. Just having the high firepower as a burst definitely helps out by a lot. And this one, being a big scale, does make a very big difference as well. So let's move over to the last torso piece now. Okay, so the last torso piece to recommend is going to be the Destiny Gundam big scale once again. So this one actually just released. I would definitely say this one released very recent. So in terms of this one, the only reason why I am recommending this one is the fact that we have a double damage going on, like double damage portrait going on. So that's why I am recommending it. Normally speaking, if we see anything that's like 30 to a 35% split, I'll definitely give it a no-go, just because of the fact that 40% is seemingly the overall trend. And then with the 30th anniversary like in full effect right now, we are starting to see a lot of 50% trade here and there. So I feel like these are just slowly being phased out at the moment. But this one on the other hand is a damage plus percentage here, so I feel like this one for the time being is still going to be one of a good candidate. Just having a double damage output going on like this one is actually quite good. So unfortunately this one only goes up to a 65 at max, so and starting percentage is only a 17-20 split. So honestly, it's just not gonna make it to that top cut, unfortunately. But I still feel like this is something that you guys may potentially want to work on as well. But yeah, overall, I'll definitely rank the full armor unicorn torso probably the better one of the batch here. So let's move over to the arm section now. In terms of the arm section, we are continuing to get some more support for the melee build. I think right now, just looking at the overall roster, I have not seen any shooting base arm going on around that has the damage plus traits here. So that is definitely something we will get more eventually. So this one is 100% going to be for a melee build centric only. Double, you can kind of say double melee boosting right here. One is for damage output, and then one is simply increasing your overall melee power by 40%. So overall very good, just a very effective way to just kind of get both of them together. So in terms of applying like the calculation, definitely going to do a very good job with these two combination overall. So not bad, definitely a good recommendation for any melee build out there. Up next we have Miss Sazabi here. So this one is going to be the same thing overall, so just a double melee power boosting, one being damage and one being a regular power boosting. So it just, at the end of the day, it really depends on what kind of build you guys are going for. So this one does have a condition to close combat, while I believe let's say the double quantum full saber does not. It is locking you down to a blade category. So I don't know, so both of them are pretty much the same. So you guys can definitely let me know which condition is worse, tying it to a specific weaponry, or having a word tag kind of situation like we are presented with Miss Sazabi arms here. I feel like in terms of the word tag, is definitely something easy to satisfy, just because of the fact that in terms of a melee build, you are probably going to be running close combat anyway. So I don't see in any form or shape why this one is not as good as the double quantum full saber. I argue this one is probably a little bit better because this one on word tag is just seemingly a better choice, while in terms of, let's say, the full saber, locking to a specific melee weapon does hurt when you do want to use some EX skill that is not blade centric. So that's probably a trade-off, but both of them specifically are literally doing the same portrait anyway. So yeah, but this one does not have a big scale, and this one does not have any alternative attribute. So in terms of trying to get some of those link attribute going on, or just even a big scale anywhere here, that is not going to be possible from this arm here. So in terms of arm, we only have these two, so both of them are melee centric builds. So let's now move over to some leg selections. Alright, so the first leg to go over is going to be the latest new Gundam. So this one, you guys have definitely seen this one as a very potent portrait. First portrait is a enemy shooting damage plus 50%. So we are starting to enter these 50% territory, which is actually very crazy, because like we're just pumping out heavily damaged like left and right, but in terms of the actual content, we have yet to see anything that is of challenge. So hopefully eventually we can get some very hard content that we can finally for once rely on these kind of good portrait going on. In terms of the secondary portrait, we do have a squad. So I don't know why they just put all, but they couldn't put it as a squad condition. So I have tried this out myself, so I can just kind of let you guys know that this one is going to be applied to your overall squad as well. So everyone in your memory is going to be able to benefit from that all power boosting, or all damage boosting. So that is definitely a very powerful fix. So if you guys are able to pull on this new Gundam over here, definitely do upgrade this one, because it's gonna pay off in the long term for sure. So definitely overall pretty good. Alright, the next one to recommend is gonna be the Gundam Barbatos Lupus Rex. So this one just came in recently, and yeah, this one has some pretty cool effects as well. You do have a squad EX skill power boosting, so why not? It's just 40 better. And this one does also have the enemy EX skill damage plus 40%. So this one is going to be very powerful. This has some pretty good supporting utility. So I don't see this one being phased out anytime soon compared to, let's say, something like the new Gundam. The new Gundam is specifically for a shooting build centric, so there's pretty much no comparison in that. But I'll definitely say in terms of, let's say, this Lupus Rex, definitely does have some pretty good dual type situation going on, because you're not really restricted to a shooting or a melee kind of condition. So that's definitely a very top tier plus for there. So overall, I'm definitely very satisfied with this one. So if you guys do want to upgrade this one over the new Gundam, I would definitely say why not, because this one you can toss it to any build, but word tech wise definitely does not support that. So that's going to be another one of those caveat to watch out for. So that's going to be pretty much it in terms of the leg department. So now next up, we are going to be talking about some back portion. So in terms of back part, we are going to be starting out strong with the Kasi Gundam back. So this one is going to be a double 40% going on over here. So you do have one shooting power boosting, so that's good. And then you also do have one enemy shooting damage plus 40%. So yeah, this is definitely a very dream combination for any shooting out there. So if you guys do looking for some very strong shooting based contender part specifically with the bag, this is definitely one you want to be looking out for. This one in terms of the overall stat is pretty good as well, so no complaints on this one. Type wise on this one is Ace, Subset, and Gundam type, so you are going to be able to access the alternative attribute word tag if you do get this one to 7-star, and then if you do have the P attribute back in your inventory, or you sell it or whatever, you just have to own it once in your playing time, and then you'll be able to access those word tag, which I believe does contain commander. So definitely a very good recommendation for sure. Okay, so up next we do have the Wing Gundam Zero Endless World version. So this one I would definitely say is slightly a little bit better, or in general just better than, let's say, the Kasi Gundam, because this one is a EXQ centric. So this one first portrait is a EXQ boosting by 40%, and then the second portrait is a all enemy, or just enemy all damage plus 40%. So this one does not really care about, let's say, is it a melee centric EXQ or a shooting centric EXQ, because everyone is going to be able to kind of take advantage of this right here. So that's why I feel like this one is simply a better investment compared to the Kasi, just because of this one is like how, versus how this portrait is. So that's why I would definitely recommend this one over the Kasi. Style wise on this one is not even that shabby at all. So definitely a very good pick for sure. So up next, we are going to be moving over to some of the melee weaponries. Alright, so the first melee weapon to go over is going to be the Proto GN Sword from your Austria Type F2. So the only reason that I recommending this one, because we do have a double damage plus, respectively 30% and a 35%. Regularly, if you talk about anything like, the regular melee power boosting, I'll definitely say no. You guys can definitely argue that, 30 to a 35% ratio does not cut it post 30th anniversary, just because of the fact that we are starting to lay our hands into those 50% trade. I feel like if you do continue to upgrade on this one, I wouldn't say it's a wasteful resources onto this one, but I feel like if you guys are able to pull on some later one that has better damage trait, that is definitely all pretty better. But this one is honestly just too restrictive only to melee. We'll definitely want to get something that's a little bit more universal if you can. So that's why this one is definitely a very good recommendation, but not to the extent where, oh, I gotta get this one to portrait level 10 ASAP. So let's move over to another one then. Alright, so speaking of, somewhat of a better one, so we do have the GN Hammer from the Austria Type F2 again. This one overall, it looks a little bit better, in terms of the portrait. We are stepping up in terms of the number. First portrait, we do have a squad all power boosting, which is definitely very good. Secondary one, we do have a enemy all damage plus 40%, which is definitely a little bit better, a step up from the one we just looked at. But this one does have a heavy disadvantage. You do have to be running everything on physical, so all your EX skill has to be physical. So in terms of, let's say, your rolling buster that is a beam base, you're not going to be able to get that. So this one is definitely like it's good, but just not good at the same time because of the heavily base condition right there. So this one is definitely a very much of a honorable mention, if you will. It looks good on paper. Well, it looks good percentage wise, but in terms of the if you do have to talk about the condition, definitely a no-go for sure. Alright, so we do have the Strike Freedom Beam Saber, the Dual Saber. So this one is pretty much the same situation as the, what is it, the GN Proto, the Proto GN sword that we look at. So this one is simply the same story, just a very niche condition. So I'll definitely say no in terms of the investment, but do want to highlight this one as well. This one obviously is going to be for a melee build, Ace Susa and a mid range. You can definitely do get this one to 7-star, and then if you guys do have the alternative attribute, the S version of this one, you can definitely access whatever the other word tag is going for. But this one is just a very versatile one, just specifically for your shooting build. So definitely not much else to say about this. So the next one to go over is very much the same thing as the Proto GN sword. We have the Sword Mace. So this one, same thing again. So this one is a melee damage plus 30 to a 35%. So I don't think there's much to talk about this one. This one is pretty much like the same thing. So big scale, no, this one is not a big scale, but it does have a alternative attribute. So I don't know. I just feel like it's just not the best investment, just because I feel like eventually they will start rolling out a lot of those power boosting slash damage trait or double damage trait. So I just feel like this one on a on an axe category melee weapon, just not really that good. So definitely do want to highlight this one, but definitely not the best recommendation for putting it onto the grove hanger. So that's that. So let's move over to some of the other ones. Right, so the next one to go over is going to be the Heatland Tempest. So this one is going to be from the Wing Gundam Zero Peace Crab Endless World version. So this one honestly does do a very good job in terms of making this a little bit more modernized. So this one is going to be a double 40% trade, one being EX skill power boosting and one being a melee damage plus. So just overall pretty good. You do have some pretty satisfiable word tag selection as well. This one only has its own P attribute. It does not have any alternative attribute yet, so that I feel like may lose out on some points. But this one having a double 40% right there definitely does makes up for the other one that we have looked at so far. So I think that's gonna be pretty much it in terms of the melee weaponry. So I think up next we can go over some of the shooting base now. Alright, so in terms of the shooting base, I feel like I have to include the beam rifle for the new Gundam FF here. So because this one, they're rocking a 50%, so why can I not recommend this one? So this one definitely a very good one that I talked about in the alteration review already, so not really gonna talk too much on this one. This one is simply very good, starting at 50%, so definitely no complaints whatsoever. Alright, so up next we do have the Beam Galligan from your full armor unicorn. So this one gonna be the same situation. We have a double enemy shooting damage plus 30 to a 35 respectively. So not really much to talk about this one, just because of the fact that we will eventually get those double 40% trade for these kind of double setup already. So I feel like this is definitely a good honorable mention for you guys, but not to a certain degree where you want to kind of fully invest into this one, if that makes sense. So we have here the high energy beam rifle from your big scale strike freedom. So this one is a very good one. So this one is going to be your double 40%. So this one is actually looking a little bit stronger from the Beam Galligan we just looked at. So we have a shooting power boost of 40% and then an EX or enemy shooting damage plus 40%. So this one is just very good. Definitely no complaints about this one. But definitely my only concern about this one is the fact that this is a long rifle category. So I feel like we may not have the best support for a sub slot, or this one is sub slotting to something else. So Yeah, this one definitely could be a hard one to kind of use in a sense, but in terms of everything else, it's looking very perfect. So we do have over here a Mamusa Buster. So I don't know why I included this one on the list. This one is going to be for your melee build, but in terms of the overall portrait wise in this one, yes, it does have a melee, what is it? Yeah, enemy melee damage plus 30%, but that is actually just quite too low. And then in terms of the initial squad charged by 18%, this one was a little bit higher as well. I think this is going to be a very good kind of portrait to be running about just because of the fact that on any build you will definitely need some initial charge boosting anyway, but this one setting at only 18% does kind of hurt just ever so slightly in a sense. So that's why I don't really have too many high hopes with this one. Just looking back at it now. Alright, so up next we are going to be taking a look at the beam rifle from the Galleon. So this one is going to be a double 40%, so that is definitely really good. So you have your EXQ damage up, and then you have your EXQ power boosting. So just overall, just a very good setup indeed. So this one is, since it is an EXQ, you can definitely toss this into your shooter build, and I feel like it will run just fine. But do kind of keep that in mind in terms of the shot attack, for this one does seem a little bit low, so it may be hard to kind of work around this one, but honestly, just very perfect. Double 40% trait, no complaints in this one whatsoever. Alright, so as for the shoe part selection here, the only one that I can confidently recommend to you guys is actually going to be the Castle shoe. Just because of the fact that this one is still a very busted combination for the shoe part, or just in general, we just don't have that many good shoe part going on. So that's why in terms of talking about portrait, this one has to be probably one of the better ones we're looking at. So I'm pretty sure most of you guys are very much familiar with the Castle shoe already, so I'm not going to do any more much explanation on that one. But with that being said, that is going to be pretty much it in terms of all the power trait parts that I feel like you guys should be focusing on if you guys are able to get them. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for me, and then I'll catch you guys all on the next one.